Billionaire Leon Cooperman is not thrilled about the possible nomination of Senator Bernie Sanders and the possibility that he could become president. And he has a few choice words. Take a look.
I look at Bernie Sanders as a bigger threat than the coronavirus. How's that?
Well, I mean, first it was Elizabeth Warren. Now you've moved on to Bernie.
In all honesty, I don't have any insight into the coronavirus beyond what everybody else has. But I assume when all the great minds in the scientific world focus on this problem, that in 3 or 4 months, this will become resolved, much the way SARS and the Ebola virus was dealt with. Bernie Sanders, if you listen to his proposals, it's only a $6 trillion annual deficit. I think also he's misrepresenting himself. He is not a socialist, but he's rather a communist. And there's a difference between a socialist and a communist. Socialists advocate a redistribution of wealth. The communists advocate nationalizing the means of production and tearing down the house that wealth has built. And all you got to do is read the Wall Street Journal editorial this past Saturday on Bernie and understand what he stands for. And the fact that he's doing so well in the polls is troublesome. You know, I just hope the country is not prepared to elect a communist or a socialist. If we do, I think that the market is in store for a big problem.
Oh, does Billionaire have a sad? Your tears are delicious, very salty. So look, obviously this guy is 100% incorrect, basically about everything. But let me focus on what's important here. Bernie Sanders, he's misrepresenting himself. He's a communist. Oh, he wants to take over, have the government take over industry. No. Look, he's nowhere near a communist or a socialist. In reality, he's an FDR New Deal Democrat. Everything he is trying to do is basically what every other industrialized modern country has already done. Universal health care through the government, through a single payer option. A lot of other countries have that. Canada, for example, the UK, another example. Denmark, another example, right? I'm sure those are all communist countries, though, right? No, that would be incorrect. The Scandinavia, also not communists, right? But it is kind of hilarious how people like Cooperman, right? Either A, don't understand the difference between communism, socialism, and social democracy, or B, they do actually understand, but they fearmonger because of one simple truth. They don't want their taxes to go up. I know he's like, oh my God, I'm so afraid of what's going to happen with the markets. Oh, the poor markets. And I love how they speak about the markets as if it's a person, as if it's alive, right? It's ridiculous. But no, I'm afraid of what's going to happen to the market if Bernie Sanders gets elected. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot that happens to the market, to be honest with you. But look, they don't want their taxes to go up, and they don't want their finances, their financial transactions to be taxed. They don't want regulations on Wall Street, which is insane because regulations on Wall Street is basically the only thing that makes sure we're not going to get crashes every few years that destroy the economy. The fact that we no longer have those regulations in place, or that they're severely weak and watered down, is why we continue to have this boom bust cycle. I don't know about you, but that's not a good thing to have. I mean, it's great for CEOs to get golden parachutes for essentially driving their their companies into the ground, and the country into the ground as well. And hedge fund managers whose job mainly is to spend other people's money and then getting paid for doing that. I mean, it's great for them, but what about everybody else? The markets, Wall Street, does not represent Main Street, does not represent regular people. And so I would also argue, by the way, based on the examples of golden parachutes and giant bank bailouts like we gave to JP Morgan, that we already have socialism in America. We have socialism for the rich. And so they get tax rates, they get subsidies, they get bailouts, they get sweetheart deals in the middle class and the working class we get screwed over. And people like Cooperman love that system. They want to protect that system because they get rich off that system. They want to protect the for-profit healthcare system, which, by the way, now 68,000 people die each year because they cannot afford healthcare. People are rationing their insulin. People are choosing to, buy the insulin over their heart medication, or buying their heart medication over the insulin was the actual example. And people, they're making that choice because they don't have a choice. People like Cooperman will never, ever understand that. But please, tell me how dangerous Bernie Sanders is. Give me a break. Now, Cooperman wasn't the only one on Wall Street worried. You also had Double Line CEO Jeffrey Gundlach calling Sanders the biggest risk to financial markets in 2020. Again, the market, it almost seems like it's a religion to them, right? Oh, we must pray to the markets, right? We must prostrate ourselves down to the markets, down to the gods of finance. Please shower us with your infinite wealth. It's ridiculous. No, we should have more control over the markets so that the markets don't have more control over us. Regulation, we need some. But look, the thing is about them that scares Bernie Sanders so much is that they don't want their greed, their rampant greed and profiteering to be reined in whatsoever. Very simple. Very simple. Now, there's one more note here, and that's who's actually telling the truth here. So now, Leon Cooperman says, oh, Bernie Sanders is a communist. He's not even a socialist. He's a communist. We can't have that. Donald Trump, oh, Bernie Sanders is a communist, right? Well, now Richard Painter, who is George W. Bush's ethics lawyer, right? He actually made this point on Twitter. He says, quote, and this is in response to a scaremongering article about, how people like Bernie Sanders, but they hate socialism, right? He said, quote, it's actually time to stop worrying about socialism. Nothing Senator Sanders has in its platform will happen without the majority of both houses of Congress. Well, look, that's actually true. There are certain ways to get certain things through, budget reconciliation, etc., and there are different legislative tricks, but in general, in order to pass sweeping reform, you would need somebody who knows how to twist arms and, get people to work with him. Well, guess what? Who better than the Amendment King to actually get people to try to work on him, as well as, of course, the election with a lot of progressives involved that might win and help propel his legislative efforts. But Painter continues by saying, what could real Donald Trump do without the consent of Congress? Destroy human civilization in about 20 minutes. So he's saying, look, Donald Trump is way more dangerous than somebody like Bernie Sanders, because Bernie Sanders isn't stupid enough to destroy the earth. Whereas Donald Trump, it's a no-brainer, right? He adds, quote, and to boot, nothing in the Bernie Sanders platform is real socialism, which means state ownership of major industries. He may have dreamed about that in his younger days, but right now, all he is suggesting is more FDR-style New Deal legislation. Understand that this guy is very conservative. And even he's pointing out, no, that's not communism, that's not socialism, that's FDR New Deal-style Democrat policies. Nothing to worry about. Stop freaking out. When George W. Bush's ethics lawyer is more honest about Bernie Sanders than anyone on CNBC, right? Because that's all you see Leon Cooperman on, right? They just keep letting him on because he's a billionaire, right? Even though he spews garbage. And also MSNBC. I mean, MSNBC is supposed to be the left-wing channel, right? Was supposed to be, right? Well, they're obviously not, because they continue to lie about Bernie Sanders. How many times has Chris Matthews said, well, yeah, he's a socialist, he's a socialist. I don't know if he'd be cheering on people trying to execute me in Central Park. I don't know. Maybe it's Denmark. Or maybe it's not. Or maybe they're going to try to kill me because he loves Fidel and praises. Look, that's all the garbage that you hear on MSNBC. And this guy, Painter, is like, no, that's not true at all. Normal FDR New Deal style stuff. There it is. And so, look, from the reaction, though, from these people, very powerful people, that they are afraid of losing just a little bit of their wealth. And mainly, and more importantly, because it's not about the wealth, these additional taxes on the wealthy that Bernie Sanders is proposing to fund some of his policy priorities will not have a gigantic impact on rich people. Leon Cooperman's still going to be a billionaire, right? Jeff Bezos still going to be a billionaire, although slightly less because he hasn't said, I'm going to get rid of billionaires, right? So they're still going to be very wealthy, but what they're going to miss is a lot of their influence on the political system. And that is something that they cannot stand to lose. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent, progressive media.